same coin. People like to equate them, and I don't think that's really true. Science is a tool to investigate the universe. It's a way of figuring out what's real and what isn't. It's a model, it's a pathway that you follow. You say, I have an idea, because I've seen something or I've heard something, and I think, maybe I have an explanation for this. Well, is my explanation right? Can I test it? Ooh, yes I can. I test it, it turns out, ooh, wrong. Dang. Okay, well, start again. Maybe I need to do this, maybe I need to do that, whatever. Skepticism is sort of a secondary tool that you apply on the line as you're doing that science. You're examining that evidence. You're not just believing it. You're questioning yourself, saying, gee, I have these observations. Maybe my observations are screwed up. One of the things I like to do, and it's funny, is people don't understand it on my blog a lot. I love posting optical illusions. I posted a couple of killer optical illusions recently, just one a couple of days ago, where you are totally convinced that these squares are lined up in spirals. They're just squares. But when you look at it, you realize they're not spirals, they're circles. And no matter how hard you look at it, they don't look like circles. And I keep telling people, that's how easy it is to fool your eye. That's how easy it is to fool your brain. When you think you see a UFO, and you hear this guy saying, yeah, this UFO came by, and it was a mile across and 20 miles away. And I think, how do you know? Did it fly between you and that distant tree? Was it between you and that mountain? Did you see it pass in front of a cloud that you know was a mile away? Or was this thing an insect an inch across that was 2 feet away? And it turns out that happens a lot. And so you can't just trust your observations here. You really have to question everything you're doing all along the line. Here we go. What is it to be a skeptic? Who are the skeptics out there? Well, you mentioned I'm the president of the James Randi Educational Foundation. James Randi is a noted conjurer and stage magician. And you probably heard of Uri Geller. One of the reasons Uri Geller is not as famous as somebody like Michael Jackson, although they were friends. Uri Geller desperately tries to use Michael Jackson to make himself more famous. One of the reasons you don't hear about Uri Geller all the time is because Randi was hounding him in the 1970s and debunking his spoon handling, making comes to spin and all that. And you can't prove that Uri Geller is not psychic, but you can't say that if he is, he's doing this the hard way, because if you can put a magnet in your finger and make the compass move and do all the tricks that are very easy. That's what Randi did. He started the James Randi Educational Foundation to promote skepticism, promote critical thinking, as we like to call it. Just thinking critically, just actually saying to yourself, I think this. Why? What is it I'm thinking and why? He's also making his famous skeptical face there. I practiced and practiced. I'm not as skeptical as he is, but I feel like I actually have a little bit of gas there. When I looked up skeptical faces online, I found this one, which killed me. And I love this because babies are the least skeptical animals on the planet, right? They believe everything you tell them, which is why when I was a new parent, I said I told her, I don't ever want to lie to my kid. I don't ever want to tell her to believe the things I believe, and I want her to find out about herself. I want to supply her with the tools that she needs to figure out what's going on around her, not just tell her. We had long arguments about Santa Claus, let me tell you that much. And I lost, and I won't tell you which way that went. But it was on my stance with my wife, who was evidently a much more powerful arguer than I am. There are a lot of media for skepticism, and there's a lot of media out there for anti-skepticism, for people trying to convince you of what's real and what isn't. And sometimes they're trying to fool you. And certainly the television, which I hear still goes on. That people still watch TV. That's amazing. That is a big venue for this, but there are skeptical shows on television. This might surprise you. Did anybody name any? You think of it? Oh, curse you. It wasn't supposed to be first. You said, yeah, The Mentalist, right? And Bones and House, right? All these shows. But in fact, the most skeptical show on TV is The Mythbusters. These guys did not set out to make a show about science. They did not set out to make a show about skepticism. But that's exactly what they've done. I took a picture at Comic-Con a few months ago. It was awesome to hang out with them a little bit. And that's what they do. It's not really science. It's not like you can publish their results necessarily in a journal, but they're using the scientific method. They're examining the evidence. They're going out there looking for something. They examine the hypothesis that that thing is presenting, that if you fall from an airplane and you land on a building that's blowing up, the explosion will cushion your fall and you can land on your feet. This was a very cool one. I just happened to see this one the other day, and it was a lot of fun to watch them do that. And that's a scientific stance. It's also a skeptical stance. Do we believe this? What's the evidence for this? Let's test it out. Adam Savage is a huge skeptic, and I should say that Adam and Jamie are exactly like you see them on TV, which kills me. Adam is this hyperkinetic, and Jamie's always looking like, what am I doing here? Adam actually comes to we have a skeptical conference every year in Vegas in July, and Adam comes every year, and he has a great time every year. And we love having him come because he is the face of sneaky skepticism. They never talk about scientific results on their show. They never talk about being skeptical, but that is exactly what they're doing, and I love them to pieces for it, because they are teaching people how to think. I'm not going to try to convince you that UFOs are not real out here today. I'm not going to talk about politics or religion or any of that kind of stuff, because that's not the point here. The point is not to come to a conclusion. The point is how you reach that conclusion. That's the important thing. That's the important thing. Boy, this map is really tripping over me a little bit. There are people out there who are trying to fool you. I'm going to talk about some of these things. Bart Sibrel is trying to convince you that the moon landings didn't happen. Buzz Aldrin talking to us in a few years later. You can look up Buzz Aldrin and Bart Sibrel if you're curious about what I'm talking about. If any of you have internet access here, I think we will look it up. There are people who are trying to convince you that hyperdimensional aliens from the future are building mile-wide, really poorly sculpted faces on Mars. You may be inadequate in some way or another. People are going to try to convince you that. You recognize Smiling Bob from the... is this Ensign? Is that what that was? Yeah, these guys were fined for, I think, $500 million, some insane amount, and the people who were putting this are in jail now. And yet it's still on TV. It's incredible. Another one is Kevin Trudeau, who is the guy who's trying to sell you coral calcium cures they don't want you to know. This guy's telling you that if you have cancer, you can eat these pills and you'll be cured, and mainstream medicine doesn't want you to know this. And so what he's doing is he's basically, he's a fraud. He's been convicted of fraud. And, he's killing people. Because there are people who are listening to him instead of going to their doctor, and people are dying. Here's one of my favorite people, Jenny McCarthy. I used to like her. I used to think she was funny. Now, if I even turn around and look at the screen, I'm going to get really angry. She is the face of the anti-vaccination movement right now, trying to tie vaccines with autism, saying that if you give your kids shots, they're going to be autistic. This is baloney. When you look at this stuff critically, you find that all the medical studies show there is no link between vaccines and autism. And these people, they spin full and mutilate reality. And it's really, really hard because they come out and they say things. And it sounds like what they're saying is right. There's fetal tissue in vaccines. There's tons of mercury in vaccines. There's all these poisons in vaccines. But they never put it in context. These people never say, oh, and by the way, the amount of mercury in these things is way below anything that's going to affect you. And it's out of your system in less than a day. So there's no way it can be doing this problem. They never talk about the studies that show that vaccines are not linked with autism or anything like that. You have to examine these things critically, including the stuff that we say, because scientists screw it up as well.